Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming at you to do a movie review, believe it or not, it's been a while. The reason I'm doing this review is because I think was it last year or something like that. Sometime in the recent history, Kino Lorber put this movie out on Blu-ray with a 4K new 4K restoration, and I guess since I go to blue-ray.com every day, at least once, probably multiple times a day. Obviously, at some point within the last year, the last 6 months or something like that, the cover art for this particular Blu-ray has been, on blue-ray.com or come across my radar or whatever. And the cover art I can assume is the poster art, and I kind of like the cover art of this particular Blu-ray release, and I'm like, oh, this is like early 20th century movie, kind of like, maybe not exactly like There Will Be Blood. I'm a huge fan of There Will Be Blood by Paul Thomas Anderson, that movie. And I'm like, well, maybe this is something obviously not going to be that great, but something along those lines from 1982 with this guy who's like this, I don't know, this is it Richard Farnsworth, I want to say, is the guy who plays this character. It seems like he's, every time they need like a genuine, authentic kind of just old west guy, they go for this guy. I will say that the guy comes across as very authentic and genuine early 20th century kind of western guy or whatever, like he's just out of a time capsule or whatever. So I'm coming at you to review the motion picture by the name of The Gray Fox that came out in 1982. I was thinking about doing a blind buy on this release because I don't know if there was a sale recently or something like that, but the Blu-ray was down to like $15.99 or something like that, and I was thinking about just doing a blind buy, and then I'm like, well, let me take a look at the trailer on YouTube, and then I came across the whole movie on YouTube, probably the Kino Lorber Blu-ray scan, I would imagine. So I'm like, well, let's play it safe and watch at least some of it, maybe the first 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes. I ended up watching the whole thing, and I'm very glad I watched it for free on YouTube because I saved myself $16. While I don't think it's a horrible movie, I was, I think disappointed is a good word. Basically, it follows this purported true story of this guy who was a stagecoach robber in the 1800s, and he got put in prison, and he spent, I don't know, was it 33 years in prison or something like that, only to be released in like I don't know if it was 1901 or I don't remember. This movie takes place in the early 1900s, the early 20th century. So the aspect about that, and I think there's a Kino Lorber trailer also on YouTube. I think I watched that first, and the aspect of this guy being in prison for the last 30 years and coming out into the 20th century, and with talk about electricity and automobiles and stuff like that, putting around the streets or whatever of the old west or whatever, and the coming industrial age and all this and that. I thought maybe that would be kind of a cool movie. So as I said, luckily I watched it for free on YouTube, and it was cool at first. Oh, one thing I want to say about this movie is the opening credits. I'm a huge fan of the outdoors, and just I thought maybe the cinematography and the huge vistas and the outdoor cinematography and photography would appeal to me in this movie, and it does. But I do want to say that probably for me the best thing about this whole movie is there's this shot after he gets out of prison, I think, where he's taking the train somewhere to see his sister or something like that, and there's this big vista shot of like this old steam train locomotive thing coming around a mountain or whatever, and all of the credits are like rolling on the bottom center of the screen as this is happening, and this train's coming around the mountain, and it's just like the steam is just billowing from the smokestack or the chimney, whatever the hell you want to call it, steam. So it's just billowing from the train, and I'm like, that imagery, that shot was just positively, absolutely beautiful, and I was like, wow, this is going to be a great movie, and I can't believe I haven't seen it yet. Alas, that was like, I don't know, for me probably just like, probably the coolest shot in the whole movie. What ends up happening is, I do like the beginning where this guy has, the main guy, Richard Farnsworth's character, the Gray Fox character. He has some, he talks to some salesman guy on the train, and he's talking about the electricity and, a washing machine. You just push a button or whatever and to wash your clothes that's coming, and he sells him this this apple peeling invention to give to his sister and stuff. I like the way it started with like hearing about a movie, watching now over 100 years later, seeing this movie made in 1982 that takes place in the early 20th century, talking about the quote unquote automated stuff that's coming or whatever, was kind of fun to listen to. But so what ends up happening is he goes to his sister, he says he's back, and he tries his hand for, they don't specify how long, but he's out of prison. He tries his hand at some he made a living his whole life since he was like a teenager, robbing stagecoaches, and got put in prison. So after he gets out of prison, he's like, as an older man, I don't know if he's like in his 50s or 60s in this movie, but he tries his hand at like just I don't know, some just menial labor work that I don't know if his sister helped set him up in or whatever. This picking clams or something, clams off the beach and putting them in buckets, just this menial work. And it's just like, yeah, he's not, obviously this isn't really doing anything for him. And there's this really cool scene, another one of the coolest scenes in the movie is where he goes to this quote unquote cinema place where they're playing The Great Train Robbery. And being a movie aficionado, I've got a DVD a long time ago in the late 90s. I think they put out by Image, that's actually got a lot of the earliest movies ever, and it's actually got The Great Train Robbery on there as well. I wish I could remember when that was when The Great Train Robbery was said to have been released, but I want to say I might have my years wrong, but 1901 might be a little, I don't know if The Great Train Robbery came out that early, or maybe the scenes in this movie take place later. Regardless, he goes to this silent film little showing of The Great Train Robbery, and it's all authentic, and the guy's playing the piano, and it's obviously, I mean, even if you haven't seen that old classic film from the early silent days, one can probably assume or imagine what it's about. It's about these cowboys, robbing a train or whatever, and when the main character, Gray Fox guy, Richard Farnsworth, sees this movie, it's like, obviously it's the first movie I'm sure he's ever seen, and it also just invigorates, this big smile goes across his face, it invigorates him, like, yeah, hell with this clam or whatever the hell, digging up clams on the beach and throwing them in bucket shit. I'm gonna get myself a pistola and get back into the there's no more stagecoaches. That's what's kind of funny about this movie. They're like, well, you can't rob stagecoaches anymore, so this movie gave him the great idea of robbing trains. So I guess movies do put bad ideas in people's minds, because this movie is proof of it. But that's basically the gist of this movie. He ends up getting a pistola and ends up, recruiting partners and stuff, and robbing trains, and then obviously he's him and his posse, I think it's mostly him and one guy in this movie are wanted, and then they go to this town to kind of lay low, and I guess he knows this one guy who owns this, maybe it's like a hotel or something like that he can lay low at this hotel if in trade he does work for this guy who probably also owns this mine and stuff like that. So at the beginning, like the first half or the first 30 minutes of the movie or something, is him probably just deciding he's getting out of prison, deciding he wants to rob trains and starting to do that, and then maybe the next 30 minutes is him laying low in this town and trying to, the money they robbed and stuff they buried somewhere to come back to later, and that's what I don't really love about this movie. The majority of it is him just laying low, and then he ends up meeting this photographer woman, and that's the basic gist of the movie. And I guess towards the end of the movie, I can't remember all the details, it doesn't really matter, I'm trying not to do beat by beats these days so much. But what ends up happening is he ends up getting, caught, and him and his accomplice get caught, and they basically, have a trial and send him off to jail. And I guess in the, afterwards, after the movie, they put text on the screen that says, he escaped and went to Europe or something and met up with, he escaped, and the woman who he was, all lovey with, ended up going to Europe, and she met up with some guy. And I think we're supposed to assume it was this character. It's like it's a different name, the guy goes by like two names in the movie, and his real name and the name he pretends to go by. So we're supposed to assume that they ended up meeting up in Europe, you know, after the movie ends or whatever. But this movie is really strange to me. I don't know if it was a particular mood I was in when I was watching it. You know, I might deserve another viewing, but I don't think I'm generally that psychotic where, you know, any particular mood I might be in is going to really affect my, you know, the way I see a movie per se. One of my biggest problems with this movie, and it's maybe not the movie's fault, maybe it's just my personality or something, is that it shows, you know, it does really good with the production design and the costume design and all that kind of stuff to really bring this early 20th century world to life, and does all that really, really well. But for me, unlike, say, for example, a movie like There Will Be Blood, where it just you know, it just affects my soul on a deep, you know, it's deeply affecting, emotionally deeply affecting movie. Like, this was the exact opposite, where it, like, all this kind of beautiful stuff, well, maybe not all that beautiful. The first shot with the train that I talked about was the best shot for me in the movie. But all of this stuff, you know, in this quaint era of just the tail end of the, you know, the end of the, you know, pre-industrial revolution era, and all this stuff, and, you know, quaint stuff and really well done, you know, early 20th century stuff is going on the screen. But it's like, it doesn't, I don't know if it's the movie's fault or my personality or a combination of both, but it didn't affect me. It didn't affect me, like, at all. It was just like, you know, I just, it was just really weird. Normally a movie does something to me, and this was just like it was happening in front, it was unfolding in front of my face, but something about the way it was made and cut together is almost like it was almost, oh God, it's like it was made by a robot, made by I don't know how to describe it. Like, it didn't touch my soul or anything like movies, you know, usually do something. And it was really, really, really weird, you know. And it's like the way it went about its stuff, it was just, yeah, I'm seeing this stuff unfold, but I don't have any emotional stake really in this, or this scene isn't presented in a way that makes me necessarily care about this. And it was really weird. I mean, usually a movie, I have some kind of emotional reaction to a movie, whether like, that's cool, that's kind of cool, or that's stupid, or I hate that. I mean, this is just like, when I watched it, it was just like it was happening in front of me, and like I was drugged or something, and just numb or something. I don't know if it was me, as I said, at the moment, or if it was the movie, or what the hell it was. But the movie, I'm very glad I watched it on YouTube and I didn't blind buy it, because, I mean, it's really something that, I said when I was like halfway through, when it was over with, it's like, God, I'm really glad I didn't buy this, because I'm not going to really ever have any interest in seeing this again. As I said, I mean, for the, you know, it does everything it does well, because of, you know, all the time, you know, the old cars and the just production design, costume design, all that kind of stuff, the music and stuff. It does it well, but it just like had, you know, just 0 to like 5% effect on me emotionally. Like, you know, it didn't affect my humanity at all. It was just like really, really, really weird. So if who's watching this has seen it, feel free to let me know if the movie's the same way for you at all, or if it just, you watched it and it was just effective like a normal movie. To me, I'm not a big fan of like Robert Redford directed movies. I would compare this to like a Robert Redford directed movie, like did he do The River Runs Through It? I'm pretty sure I reviewed that movie years ago while kayaking on a river, and that's what I thought of when I saw this movie. I'm like, this feels like it was directed by Robert Redford, like it's got, and for me, The River Runs Through It was like the same thing, where it's like, it goes through all these motions and it has beautiful cinematography and stuff, but for me, it's so cookie cutter, surface level kind of stuff that it doesn't even begin to touch me on an emotional or you know, any kind of level at all. So that's what I thought of. I'm glad I thought of that before I ended the review. I'm like, yeah, this I know it wasn't directed by Robert Redford, but I mean, it just has that mediocrity about it, like just the boringness, you know, like somehow you can fill the screen for, you know, 90 to 120 minutes with images and sounds, and like Robert Redford did it for me in The River Runs Through It, and just like have no, and a lot of beautiful cinematography in River Runs Through It. And I guess with the, I mean, I guess that stuff, you know, was a positive aspect of that movie. But like just like everything else is just like such cookie cutter character crap that it just really didn't do anything for me at all. One thing that I did like about this movie is apparently it was filmed in Canada because it's got at least two actors that I know are, you know, that I've seen in the only other stuff I've ever seen them in is Canadian movies. This one guy who was in you know, Rituals, and the only other thing I think I saw him in was Murder by Phone, and he's also in this very briefly as like this big wig cop who's hunting down this guy, you know, the main Gray Fox character. And then I'm pretty sure the guy who played Mo from Terror Train is also like the sheriff, which is really cool to see him. He's got the old, you know, late 1800s mustache on and stuff, and I'm pretty sure it's that guy. Being filmed in Canada, I'm sure it is that guy. But it was fun to see him in a, you know, a non-slasher movie role, in a more serious role, if you will. But I'm pretty sure those are at least two of the Canadian actors that I recognize from this particular production. So the Gray Fox star rating, what would I go on this? I mean, I'll go as high as 2.5 stars out of 4 stars, just because it, you know, I guess if nothing else, it really, you know, Richard Farnsworth is a very great casting choice for this role, you know, any role for this era. And just it's, you know, it's very competent portrayal, you know, production design and costume design and vehicles and all this stuff. And even the music was kind of cool, you know, and stuff that they put in there and stuff. So from these technical standpoints and stuff, and let's face it, it's not what you'd call a horrible movie. It's just, like I say, it didn't really affect me. I'm really interested in hearing people in the comments that watch this, and you know, just to hear what they think about it as well. Maybe you haven't seen it, maybe you can watch it on YouTube and let me know what you think, whatever. Maybe you've already seen it, but I'm very curious as to what other people, you know, think about it as well. It's just like, it's not what you call a bad movie. It's just like a movie that it just has like no effect on me one way or another, you know. So as I said, very glad that I saved the money on it and didn't buy it, because I don't really need to really ever see this movie again. So I guess that'll pretty much do it for my review. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.